Do you ever have those times where you just want to experiment, come up with new ideas? This is kind of what I've got here in this session. You'll have to excuse me because I'm losing my voice a little bit. Part of what I like to do is experiment with new plugins. Lately, I've been experimenting with this plugin, which is from Waves. So just for Black Friday weekend, this is free and it's called Lil Tube. And it's basically a tube emulation. It's a very simple plugin. I've used it on quite a few different things. So you can have a listen and then we'll kind of deconstruct it a bit. And if you stick around towards the end, I will give you a tip on how to get the most out of this plugin. All right, let's have a listen. This is just me having some fun with essentially what are mostly loops. It's not a serious project, but maybe perhaps down the line it could turn into something. So how do you get the most out of this? There's only really three controls that you have to worry about, which are the output, the drive control, and this selector here between different sensitivities. Now, I think these are pretty self-explanatory, but where you might get confused with this plugin is the sensitivity one here. As you move from over here to here, it turns whatever you're working on into more of a square wave, which may or may not be desirable, you know, and with all the harmonic content that comes along with that. I have pushed it pretty hard. One of the ways that you can get the most out of this is by running it on the high setting to get, I would say, a little bit more of a compressed sound from the distortion. But if you don't run the level too hot into it, you can run it on the high setting and still get some of the same tonal qualities. Whereas I find if you go over to the soft setting, there's not a lot of difference. It is really subtle and maybe you need to just pump it into there. So the sensitivity is a bit like a threshold on a compressor, and the more you go across, the more compressed it gets and the more crunchy and whatnot. So that's just something to be aware of. I would experiment with how hard you're hitting it. So let's have a look at what we've got going on. So on the shaker, I've picked a pretty aggressive sensitivity setting, but I don't think I'm pushing that much level into it. So for me, it just adds this dimension to the sound that it didn't have. In this particular setting, it's compressing it a lot, so it is bringing out tonality of the room and stuff, but it is adding all these extra harmonics that add some excitement. Let's have a look at the bass. So it's adding a bit of grit there, love it. And just on the Rhodes type sound, it looks like I'm using the normal setting with a little bit less drive than what you've seen before. Cool. And I'm actually using it on the reverbs and delays that I've got going on. I really like the texture of what this does. There's other distortion plugins that I've tried on reverbs and delays and things, and this would be, I would say, the first distortion plugin that's had a much wider sweet spot before it starts to sound like a distortion on a reverb. It really feels like Waves has spent some time trying to find a greater sweet spot. You've got so many textural options between the soft, normal, and high. If you'd like to extend the sweet spot of the plugin even further, or any distortion for that matter, you can use emphasis, de-emphasis EQ. Basically, all it involves is that you've got an EQ before and after the distortion, and they're equal and opposite moves. So I'm just going to put this back over here. With this, let's have a listen to the bass with and without Magma. If I take this EQ off, have a listen. So the way to set this up for any distortion plugin is let's just set this up again and I'll show you how to do this. So this is a free plugin. The way that I do this, I want to push into the distortion and make it sound worse. Let's have a listen. So pretty much around this 200. You can hear it's too crunched up. It's not something I really like. So the way I set this up is I'll push into it. So let's move along. There's another one I'm not particularly liking. Same again. And we're kind of out of the range of useful frequencies there. So I would say in this case, I don't like this frequency that much pushing in. I don't like that one. This one, and I think it was something like that. So we'll push those into the distortion. We'll make it sound worse and just kind of smooth it out with this graphical EQ. And the cool thing about it is that I can now copy that setting down, and on the first insert, I can click invert. And now I've got the inverse of what comes after. And without those two. So it just gives you a bit more of a sweet spot. That's a great little technique you can use. Just push into the distortion, make it sound worse, and then just flip it. And this plugin makes it quite easy. It's great that it's free, and it's great that it's a linear phase EQ, because if you happen to leave it on, it doesn't matter because it's cancelling itself out. So that's my tip to you. Have a play with it. I'll leave a link in the description. Go and grab Magma Lil Tube from Waves. For a free plugin, this is great. Same with this one. Go and grab both of these. You'll have a lot of fun with them. If you like this content, remember to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Happy mixing.